Good evening, everybody. Happy Thursday, and welcome back to the Man Cave. It's that time of the week again. Uh, we don't have Brother Jeff with us tonight. He's feeling a little under the weather, and he's trying to get straightened out before he leaves to go on vacation tomorrow. But we've got Ryan Lowry from down on the Gulf Coast, Alabama, with us tonight
Good
instead.
evening, everyone.
And we got Tanya from all the way upstairs. So we'll get things going for sure. Uh, it is that time of week again. I'm ready for a bourbon. I hope you guys are going to have a bourbon with me or something. Let me get tabbed over to the comments here. Hank, glad you could make it. Anthony, I'm going to hit into this Larceny barrel proof tonight. I think this bottle's finding its way toward the bottom, and fortunately, I have some more. I've got another one of those hiding up there somewhere, so I'm going to get a little bit of that in the new
Is
bourbon
that
glass.
is that going to be one of your 10 bourbons?
I don't know. I still haven't settled in on what I'm going to do with that yet. I think I'm overthinking it. I think I'm just going to try to work myself down to where I've got no more than 10 bottles on the shelf at any given time. We'll see what happens. I haven't bought a new bottle. I don't remember what the last new bottle I bought was. Tanya, I bought something the last time I went to the liquor store. Do you remember what I bought? Uh,
No.
oh, I bought the rare breed barrel proof rye. That's uh that's this guy right here. This is pretty good. I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to land in the rye whiskey game. I need. I know where I'm going to be in the house rye. It's going to be that Southern Distilling double rye that's $30 a bottle. I like that, but I might. I want to try the Jack Daniel's barrel proof rye, which I haven't had a chance to do yet. So anyway, Ryan, you having a drink with us tonight?
Yes, sir. Having a New Belgium Juice Force IPA.
New Belgium. Okay, Tanya, you got some coffee brewing.
Man, I sure do. And I have filled it up with some fine,
Go,
fine
go back to
peppermint
that last
flavored.
comment.
What about the aged
Yeah,
tequila
I,
and
I,
Buffalo Trace
I,
barrels?
I would try that. I would probably try a tequila that had been aged in bourbon barrels. That intrigues me.
That
From
that
Mister,
is
I
a
don't like anything that's aged in.
Yeah, but it's tequila. I wouldn't be offended at tequila, which has got a flavor improvement.
I was gonna say we give a special shout out to Eric there. That's a good friend of mine joining us for the first time this evening, and I've been
Yeah,
hearing about that tequila for a couple of weeks now.
Yeah,
Eric,
I'm telling you,
welcome,
Eric,
welcome.
that's
Uh,
impressive.
I've
John
been threat.
normally is like, no.
I'm not a big fan of bourbons that have been aged in other kinds of barrels, but Tanya lucked up and got me one by accident one time that I really liked. I liked that Joseph Magnus that had been aged in sherry casks. That was good, but I do not care for the Angel's Envy that's aged in. I think it's aged in port barrels. Uh, I'm not a fan of that, and I'm not a fan of beers that have been aged in bourbon barrels either. I don't like it. I'd rather have a bourbon than a beer that's got hints of bourbon with it. But I've been talking about the idea of since I'm getting pretty settled in on what I like in bourbon and whiskey, and I'm thinking about trying something different. And I don't know if I'll go with tequila. I've I may experiment with rum, and
Well, I will tell you, the only bourbon I like is the bourbon ice cream that I get at the local shop. It's
Yeah,
called Exhausted Parent, and it's
yeah.
like a bourbon ice cream with a coffee ripple and
When
chocolate.
when we
Everything.
went to, you like that ice cream that we got when we went to Jack Daniels? That ice cream shop and served that ice cream that had Jack Daniels in it. That
Yeah,
was
I
pretty
did
good.
like that too. But it's all the way in Tennessee
Hey
versus
Russ,
Exhausted Parent. I could just run up, 10 minutes up the road and grab some Exhausted Parent.
I was like,
Russ,
speaking of ice cream, my wife is giving us a cheers with her Ben and Jerry's all the way from the living room,
I like Ben and
watching the
Jerry's
show as
too.
well.
Yeah, give me some of that fish food, and I'm good to go.
I like fish food. It's funny. I don't care for Fish the Band, but I like fish
Yeah,
food. Yeah.
Russ is asking about single malt scotches. Russ. I just cannot get into the scotches. I've tried a lot of them, and I've got some here. I've got a couple that I don't find them offensive, but I'm just not the biggest fan of that smoked peat flavor. I just can't for some reason or another. I learned to love that. I would have better luck with an Irish whiskey probably than the Scotch. And I've got a bottle somewhere back here of a single malt American Stranahan's, I believe it's called, that I kind of like it. And our friend Honorog introduced me to a malt whiskey. The first time when I met Honorog, he brought this stuff called Maris Otter that was pretty good. And when he was telling me about it, the name Maris Otter struck me immediately because I used to buy Maris Otter malted barley when I was home brewing beer. Uh, Maris Otter was my base malt for about everything I brewed, so I was familiar with that name. So
Well, Robert, I will check that out. We don't have a Harris Teeter near here, but
Harris Teeter packed up and moved out of our area. What? There's one in Boone, Tanya. Is there? There
well,
is one
here's
up there.
here's the deal. Tomorrow I've got that conference I have to go to. I'll see if there's a Harris Teeter on the way there or on the way back. See if I can grab one of that.
Well, you better take a cooler with you then.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, I know all of them don't, but most of them do. And I guess I would need to play around with it, but I may experiment with rum and see if I can. I don't know. I'm pretty happy where I am. I don't really feel the need to expand, but if I just don't know what I'm going to try yet. But anyway, cheers, everybody.
Cheers. And Russ, I'm with you. I don't even know what's in that green chili stew, but that sounds good. It has the words green chili in it. I'm in.
I'm gonna run in the kitchen real quick, grab the remote so I can turn the TV on because I can't see the comments on the phone. It's too small, so I'll be right back.
Okay,
All right.
so uh, Brian, glad you could make it, but it's something I'm going to play around with. I hope everybody's had a good week. I've had a pretty good week around here. The weather's been fairly cooperative this week, unlike the previous week. I've had nice weather this week. Uh, we had a first for me. I bought this weather station several years back, and I'm a numbers geek. Tanya will tell you, and I kind of keep up with weather trends in our area. And since I've been measuring rainfall with that rain gauge that's on that weather station, January produced exactly 10 inches of rain here where I live, and I've never recorded that much rain in 1 month during the whole time. But I have to say that 4.75 inches of that came in one day. That was a couple weeks back. I think I showed you guys a little video clip of that storm that blew through here, lasted
Oh
all
man,
day.
it
Yeah,
came through here too, and it dumped a ton of rain.
right. So that flooded my basement, and it made a
So
mess.
Levi, if you could shoot me the recipe, I appreciate that.
Okay, let's see here. All right. Tanya, we'll bring you back in a bit. All right. Did you cook anything fun this week, Ryan?
We have done well. Obviously, we've all been on the ramen kick, but that's nothing too exciting and crazy. I
I
did
love
chicken
ramen.
parmesan. Oh yeah, me too. I was gonna say, and
Yeah.
since we've all been talking about it in the chat group, it's just spiraled out of like
Yeah.
it's opened up a whole new world of ramen.
Yep.
But let's see. I did chicken parmesan this week.
Mhm.
We've done some tacos. We did the pumpkin soup about a week ago with the pumpkins that have been hanging out since before Thanksgiving. That was
Yep.
the Mrs. request, and that did that on the KJ, and that turned out phenomenal.
Right.
So, been doing a little bit of cooking. Been doing a little bit of cooking, a lot of just odds and ends, housework, all that good stuff.
Yep.
Still waiting for my outdoor kitchen to get done. My electrician finally showed back up last week, so fingers crossed we'll be on the uh, on the downward slope of that and getting in there
Awesome.
soon.
I've been seeing the pictures you've been posting. I've been waiting for that thing to get. You got a really nice setup going on out there. I'm looking forward to seeing it get completed finally.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say I'm looking forward to you and me both. I was gonna say,
Yeah.
and hopefully start getting some videos rolling, sometime in the near future.
Yeah, I'm going to be ramping my video production back up, especially with this Lone Star grill, but I'm going to try to do some other things as well. I've got some equipment that I've ordered that I think is going to help me out uh, in video production, and I would like to actually do some live cooking on the griddle.
That'll be
Stuff that,
fun.
stuff that's quick, stuff that doesn't take long. But I've bought this new. I don't want to call it a tripod because it's not a tripod, but it's a camera stand that I can either put my video camera on it, or I can put my phone on it, or I could put a webcam on it, and it makes it very easy for me to position that thing anywhere I want it and point it anywhere I want it, even point it straight down at something, which I think is going to make for some interesting stuff once I get it. But it's a new product, and it's not actually shipped yet. I've pre-ordered it. I actually went earlier today to look to see if there were any updates, and it's still at least 2 weeks out. They keep backing up the date on it, so we'll see.
I said
I'm,
fingers crossed on that as well.
yeah, looking forward to trying it out. So we'll see when it gets here. So I'm gonna bring some of my stuff up. The first thing I did this week, I did a pan pizza, and I did this pan pizza on the Lone Star Grill, and I made video of this, but this video won't publish till next week sometime. Tomorrow I'll be publishing the one I shot last week on the hot and fast pork butt. Uh, that video is edited and ready to go, and it'll be coming up tomorrow. But I wanted to do a pan pizza on the Lone Star. The Lone Star will run up to 450 pretty well, and that's a pretty solid temperature for cooking a typical pan pizza. The There may be some ways to get that grill a bit hotter, and I just haven't experimented with them yet, but I intend to. I've got to be careful with it because this thing is controlled with a fireboard, and it's got the same probes are in use that run on the Fireboard 2 drive, and those probes are only rated for like 570 as a max. So I kind of have to be careful with how hot I bring that thing. But I wanted to
Oh,
try a pan pizza that's easy. And once again, none of my audience, or very few in my audience, are interested in making bread or pizza dough from scratch. But this one I came up with here is so easy that there's really no excuse for not giving it a try. It's a no knead dough, and it's an overnight or a 18 to 24 hour room temperature ferment. You don't even have to put this one in the refrigerator. So it starts out with these five simple ingredients. You've got flour, water, yeast, salt, and I put a little bit of extra virgin olive oil in this one as well. And when I post this video, I'll be posting all the ingredients, but all you have to do with this is put I didn't do it in the video, but what really should happen is you should go ahead and dissolve the water in the yeast, or dissolve the yeast in the water here, and then you just uh, dump the salt in the flour and give it a quick whisk, and then dump the water, yeast, and oil in there, and just mix it. Just mix it till it all comes together, and there's no dry flour left, and then you've got a kind of just a shaggy dough ball that looks like this after you kind of compress it together. All you have to do when this is done is cover that bowl with plastic wrap and leave it sitting out on your counter for I'm going to say 18 to 24 hours is a good window on this one. Mine went about 22 hours before I moved on to the next step of this one. So once again, you cover it with plastic wrap and put it on the counter. This is what this dough looked like 22 hours later. I had pulled the plastic off of it. It's kind of hard. It's a little different camera angle. This has expanded a good bit. Oh, also, what's not in the picture there, I put a little bit of Italian seasoning blend in this dough. I put about a teaspoon of Italian herbs
Nice.
in there. I forgot. I didn't have that in the picture there, but I put it in the dough. So that's what these specks are. Is just some of that spice aisle Italian herb blend. It's got 4 or 5 different Italian herbs in it. So 22 hours in, I take this thing out and kind of shape it. I put it on a floured surface and try to shape it into a ball, which once again, it's not even really necessary to shape it into a ball, because I'm going to go straight from there. I use my Lodge 9x13 baking dish for this, the Lodge cast iron. I put a couple tablespoons of olive oil in the bottom of that pan and put this dough ball in there and just started mashing it out. The one of the drawbacks of doing a no knead dough like this is it's kind of elastic. It takes a little finesse to spread this dough into the bottom of this pan. It's going to fight you. So what you have to do, what I did here was about 2 hours before I was ready to cook, I put this dough in the pan and stretched it out as best I could. That's as far as I could get it on the first try. So when it fights you and starts wanting to snap back, you leave it alone for 10 or 12 minutes, and then you come back and do it again, and it'll stretch further. And you may have to do that 2 or 3 times to get it stretched fully out into the pan. And here's while that's working, I went ahead and grated up, or I chopped up some whole milk mozzarella in my food chopper. And finally, I get this thing mostly stretched out, to the outer edges of the pan. And once I've got that, I just toss the towel over the top of it. And I want to, or here's the final picture. I did get it stretched out a little more there. So it's pretty much all the way out to the edges of the pan, and it's not collapsing anymore at this point. So I toss the towel on it, and I want to let that sit for an hour at a minimum, and kind of let that thing reproof a little bit while it's sitting there. And while that's doing its thing, I need to get the grill fired up. So I went out and cranked up the Lone Star, running it wide open. 450 is as high as this thing will let you set it. So I powered it up, and I wanted this grill, as big as this grill is and as much thick steel as it's got, it takes this guy a little while to get up that hot. So I gave it an hour, and it didn't take it quite an hour to get there, but giving it some time to fully preheat's a good idea. So we started it up, and once my grill was preheated, I tossed in sauce, and I sauced all the way to the edge on this guy. I put some of my grated whole milk mozzarella on it, and I put a few pepperonis on it as well. We don't really like pepperoni here, so I got a little skimpy. I got a little skimpy with those.
Sparing.
Yeah, we're not big pepperoni fans. So anyway, at that point, my grill's nice and hot. So it's actually showing 470 over there on the side. There's a little variation from one side to the other at various points, but I hadn't opened the grill at this point. So I got it sitting here ready to go, and I tossed it in. I didn't take a picture of it. I did. I just don't have it here once I set it on the grill. But this pizza took about 30 minutes to cook at 450 in this pan. And this is what it looks like right as I'm getting ready to bring it out of the oven. And it smelled amazing. Over here on the right, as I'm looking at this thing as I pulled it out, it's a little more done, maybe on the right than on the left. I might should have spin it. That was the fire pot on the Lone Star grill is on the right hand side of the grill, so it may be warmer air moving right to left on this thing. I might have should have spun it around 180 degrees at some point during that cook. I didn't know how long this cook was going to take, so I had to check it periodically, and that probably slowed it down a little bit. The fact that I opened the lid probably 3 or 4 times during this cook. I opened it at the 10-minute mark. I opened it at uh, probably the 18-minute mark, and then again at the 25-minute mark. And I knew at 25 it wasn't going to take much longer. So at 30, I think we were done. So I pulled it off and let it rest for a few minutes and then took it inside. This guy, the way I made it, I pushed that cheese and sauce all the way out to the edge where I'd get some caramelization, kind of like I get when we do a Detroit style pizza. The Detroit style pizza, the sauce doesn't go on it till after the cook, or and it goes on top of everything else. But this one's got sauce and cheese on there, so I got some nice caramelization around the edges from that. And this is the bottom of it. You can see how we've got a nice golden brown crisp fried crust down there, because I probably had 3 tablespoons of olive oil in the bottom of that pan. So this dough is basically frying in that oil during this process. And this thing came out beautiful. I've got it was delicious. It had a great flavor to it. I think the only thing I'm going to adjust before I publish this dough recipe is I'm going to put a little bit more salt in it. I went with 2% salt and a baker's ratio, and I think this particular dough needs 3. It needs a little bit more salt than what I put in it, but this thing came out amazing. It was
That's
fantastic.
a good looking pie. And look, I have to be the first person to raise my hand, and it's not that I don't want to, go back to what you were saying. It's not that I'm not interested in making pizza dough or bread. It's just, it's intimidating. That's one of those
Yeah.
things. Like, I know my way around the kitchen, but that, baking, and dough,
Well,
that's a whole different animal. But that looks like something I definitely want to give a try for sure.
Jeffrey, that's a 9 by 13 pan. I made this one for a 9 by 13. It's a typical. Everybody's got a 9 by 13 pan somewhere, so that's why I use this one. I've got a 10 by 14 Detroit pan, but I didn't use it because I'd had to use a little. I'd had to make just a little larger dough recipe for that, and I don't want people to take a larger dough recipe and stuff it into a 9 by 13 pan, because it would make that crust significantly thicker than it is in this picture right here if we had done that. But yeah, Ryan, it's when I first started barbecue, man, briskets were intimidating, pork butts were intimidating, ribs were intimidating, dough is intimidating as well. But I find baking to be I think baking, especially with breads and doughs like this, is challenging, and that's why I like doing it. I've not mastered it. I'm never going to have claimed to have mastered any of this. I've mastered a few things, but not. I haven't mastered all these pizza doughs. There's only a few pizza doughs that I feel like I have nailed and can nail them consistently, and this actually is not one of them. This is one that
You
I've
could have
done
fooled
this one.
me.
Well, I've done this one so many different ways that the results can vary. The more I get, more consistent results when I do a 2 hour dough instead of a 24-hour dough. But the flavor development you get on that longer ferment is just worth doing. And this dough I think would be even better yet if you turned it into a 72-hour dough. By At the 24-hour mark, you just toss it in the refrigerator for two days. So
Well, hey, look, it's got a, any shortcomings, it's got enough pepperonis to make up for it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Can't go
Well,
wrong with them.
you can cover up your mistakes. And also, looking back at how well this pizza came out, I'm disappointed that I used the pepperoni I used. I had some in my refrigerator that I needed to get rid of, and it's the pre-sliced Hormel pepperoni, those thin pepperonis. And what I should have done on this was got a pepperoni stick, get either a Bridgeford or a even better than that, get a boar's head pepperoni
Oh
stick and
man,
slice it off myself, because those pepperonis cook so much better than these do, and they cup and they brown and
I was gonna say I figured that's where you're going with the cup pepperonis.
yeah. One of these days I'll learn just to quit buying the Bridgeford, but those thinner pepperonis like that have some other uses. I like to use them for some other things, but um, next time I do this, I will definitely use a better quality pepperoni than what I put on this one. But I always use whole milk mozzarella, and I chop it myself. I never buy grated cheese anymore.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
it's a must. It's so next level grating your own cheese. It's
Well,
definitely worth the extra time.
and that's something else we've been talking about. I don't have a food processor, and I'm hoping to get one before too terribly long. I'm putting some bugs in ears for my mom, especially. I told my mom I wanted an Amazon gift card for my birthday because I found the food processor I want, and I would rather, instead of running the food processor that I have that I just showed you in that picture, not really a food processor. It's a chopper. It's a Ninja that's got a chopper bowl that I showed you. There's also a dough blade with that, but there's a blender jar for that thing also that I never use, especially since we bought the Vitamix. But I want
I
to
was
get
gonna say I have the same model, and I don't think the blender's been used once in the couple years I've had it.
right. The
So
blend
you know,
the blender's not got that standard claw blade at the bottom. It's a post down the middle that's got chopper blades at like three different levels on it.
hmm
Uh, and I'm just not a fan of it. I've used it, but I want a legitimate food processor that I can shred this cheese like it would be on a grater. The mozzarella is too soft to grate easily on a box grater. I can grate cheddar on a box grater quickly because it's firmer, but if you've ever tried grating a handful of mozzarella, when you get down halfway through that block, it's mushy and it's
just
kind of
turns
hard to
into a.
do. Yeah, so I
Here's a
always
thought.
uh-huh.
I was gonna say, here's the thought. I was gonna say, and I don't know if it would work, but I know this is a good tip. Just sometimes shredding cheeses to throw it in the freezer for 5 to 10 minutes and get it cold so it
Yeah.
doesn't gum up. I wonder if that would work for mozzarella.
I don't know. I've never tried it.
Nor have I, but
I don't know what
might
that
be
would
worth
do.
trying. I don't
Yeah,
either.
I'd rather buy a
Oh,
food processor.
yeah,
I,
there you
and, and
go.
and what's worse is before I figured out what I wanted, I was talking with Stephen Hickey about it. And actually, Stephen's comments on it last week were making me what got me into looking at it again, because he was explaining why the the slicer adjustment on the Breville is such a better system, and I agree it is, and that's the one I'm going to get. But
Oh man, I was saying not to get off topic, but I completely forgot. You asked about cooks this week. I made that burger. Man, everybody needs to go and give that thing a try.
what the one
It is
Stephen
something
made,
serious. Yeah, the French dip burger.
right?
Man, that was good.
Yeah, it looked good. I wish I could get him to come on here and talk with that stuff about me, but I just haven't been able to make that happen. Maybe someday, but we'll see. So the second thing I did this week is what I'm going to call man cave possum nuggets. Uh, and here are the ingredients that went in that. I know a lot of you are familiar with Bucky's, and uh, I didn't. The first time I went to Bucky's was with Jeff a couple years ago, and I went to the one down in Warner Robins, Georgia, and I didn't buy any, but I saw the Bucky's beaver nuggets when I was in there, And let me tell you something about these things. Those Bucky's Beaver Nuggets, for the last I don't know how many years, my mom has been making these things at Christmas. And we didn't call them Beaver Nuggets. We call it Christmas crack because it happens at Christmas time, and these things are as addictive as crack. You can't, once you start eating these things, you're going to eat all of them. They're not going to be any left behind. And
So what you telling me? I need to try the beaver nuggets next time I'm by Bucky's. I have
yeah,
one 20 minutes from the house, and I've never tried them.
definitely try the Beaver Nuggets. But
Will do.
mom's been making these things, and I decided just to ask her for the recipe, and she sent me the recipe. So I went online and looked for Bucky's Beaver Nugget recipes, and I found them. And my mom's the recipe that she handed me is exactly the same thing as I found in multiple places online. So today, for the first time, I decided to make these. And you start out with these Chester's puff corns, the butter flavor. It's got brown sugar, Karo syrup, butter, a little bit of vanilla, and a little bit of baking powder. So to get this thing going, I fired up the Kamado Joe. I decided to go out, Ryan, and do this thing on the Kamado rather than doing it in the oven, simply
Nice.
because we cook on grills around here. So I fired up the Kamado Joe to 250 because it's what these are going to cook at. So you start out by melting a stick of butter. And once the butter's mostly melted, I dumped in my brown sugar and my Karo syrup. And I'm over probably somewhere between medium and medium high heat here. It doesn't take long, but once all that gets melted, you just kind of whisk it as it's going. And you have, as soon as it starts to come to a boil, you don't want to let this thing boil vigorously. You take it off the heat as soon as that starts to boil. Then you dump in your vanilla, you dump in your baking powder, and then you just whisk that guy until it looks like this. It only takes a couple of minutes. It's real smooth and creamy looking. And then it's done. That part of it's done. And I took the puff corn and put it in a large mixing bowl and drizzled all this sugar and butter mixture on top of that. And I thought I was just going to pick that bowl up and toss it, but this won't toss. So I got a wooden spoon out and I just stirred that carefully so I didn't break up much of the puff corn and stirred it until that stuff's all completely coated, like you see here in this picture. And I used I've got a 12-inch, this is a 12-inch Lloyd pan, deep dish pizza pan. And I buttered the pan per the instructions in the recipe, which we'll talk about this when we're done. There's a better way to do this. But then I just dumped all of that in there and spread it out as best I could. It probably would have been better in a bigger pan where it wasn't doubled up so much, but I said it's not going to be a problem. I tossed it on the Kamado Joe that was running at 250, and it goes for an hour at 250. So once it's done, I can't remember if this is a before or after picture right here, but this is the after picture. I brought it in. And some of these things they'll be stuck together, so you kind of have to break them apart and just let them cool. And I'm telling you guys, these things are like crack. They are they're wonderfully sweet. Uh, Tanya and I were talking about them earlier, and Tanya, these Chester's puffed corn things, they come in a butter flavor and there's a cheddar flavor also. And let me get Tanya back here for a second. Tanya, what's that Chicago mix you were talking about? That's a popcorn mix that's got what in it?
Yeah, it's got the caramel corn and the cheese corn in it.
Okay.
And they
So
usually call it a Chicago mix. Now, of course, our local popcorn calls it a Carolina mix.
right. So Tanya has suggested that I do this in a mixture of cheddar and the butter flavored. And we were talking about that also, taking some of it and drizzling some chocolate over it and having these nuggets made with the butter flavor and the cheddar, and then have some of that, not all of it, with a little little small drizzles of chocolate on there, I think that'd be really good. It's really yeah, Eric, the original recipe, I didn't mention it. It calls for a cup of chopped nuts, but that's optional because it said optional on the recipe, and I don't eat nuts, so it's a no-brainer that I'm going to leave them out. But you can put nuts in there as well. And if if I ate nuts, and if I was going to put nuts in here, I would chop them rather finely, where where they would adhere to these corn nuggets in this sugar mixture. So, but
I,
yeah, there's nuts.
I was gonna say I'm liking the sweet and salty with the cheddar and the I was talking with a good friend yesterday about Chex Mix, and oddly enough he had mentioned, he's like, next time you do it, throw some Honey Nut Cheerios in there, and I was like, Honey Nut Cheerios, huh? And he's like,
Yeah,
yeah, he's like the sweet and salty contrast. He's like, we did it by accident because he bought the Honey Nut Cheerios instead of regular, but he said it
right.
worked out really good. So I'm like, I'm digging it.
But this stuff was crazy. The Doing it on the Kamado is not really ultimately the best way to do this. First of all, if you're going to do this on your Kamado or your grill, you need to make sure your grill's clean. This would not be good. This would not be good at all if there's any smoke that's coming from grease residue on this. It would leave a horrible flavor on this. Fortunately, I know some of you know I've got two Kamado Joe Classics out here, and one of them is my everything but meat grill. And that's what I cook these on. I don't have any smoke residue in that grill from grease because there's nothing greasy ever cooked on it. So that's the grill I bake on. I do things like this on that grill. But if you're, like I said, if you're going to do it on a Kamado, do it after you've a high heat, a high temperature cleaning where you don't have any, and you don't want to add any smoking wood to this. And when you light that grill, let it come up to 250 and let it idle there for an hour, and make sure you've got the cleanest smoke possible if you want to do this on a grill. I don't recommend doing this on any kind of pellet grill. A pellet grill is going to produce enough smoke at 250 that I think it would just not be good on this. And that sugar mixture that's on there is going to be like water or anything else. It's gonna attract smoke. Smoke's gonna adhere to that. And Tanya, when I gave you some of these this afternoon, you didn't detect anything that you wouldn't have known I'd cooked that on the grill if I hadn't told you, would you?
That is correct. I would not have detected that.
But I would recommend doing these in your indoor oven for multiple reasons. Number one, the main reason is I would put these on a sheet pan, on a half sheet pan, where you can spread them out thinner. And don't worry about butter in that pan. Just put parchment paper down. The parchment paper is going to be a better solution than butter in the pan because that sugar, some of that sugar caramelizes and it makes a mess on the pan that's got to clean up. Fortunately, it cleans up easily. I put a little hot water in that pan and let it sit for a few minutes, and then was able to wipe it all out with a sponge. But a parchment paper would be uh, a better solution for that. So I am going to play with this some more. I'm going to do. I think I'm going to do the variation that Tanya suggested. I'm going to do the cheddar and the butter flavored, and I think I'm going to get some. Tanya, would we use semi-sweet chocolate on that or dark chocolate?
Yeah, I would use definitely a semi-sweet or a dark.
So we can just make and I'm not talking about a lot, guys. It just be
Just
a
a
real
drizzle.
thin drizzle of some chocolate on that. It's going to be really good, and that's given me some more ideas.
Oh,
But
and I have
this,
some more I'll share with you later.
okay, but that came out really well. I was really impressed with that, and it's like I said, it's a Christmas thing with us because I didn't know until the first time I went to Bucky's what these things were. I just knew that my mom made them from scratch at Christmas time. So it's a homemade beaver nuggets.
And we
And
call it a Christmas
honestly,
crack because
yeah, that's what I
it's
told
really
them.
hard to stop eating.
The My honest opinion is that these are better than Bucky's beaver nuggets. The Bucky's nuggets have they have apparently a lot more of the sugar mixture on them because they're actually kind of crunchy on the
Yeah, they're
outside.
hard
Yeah,
sometimes. Yeah.
they're kind of crystallized on the outside. There's a lot more of it on there. These actually maintain more of a popcorn texture than the Bucky's ones do. So making the if you like beaver nuggets, oh, did I not put the hang on, I was gonna dadgummit. Uh, uh I had made a file, a picture of the recipe that I was going to put up here, but it's on the other computer. I was going to share the recipe with you. So this post, I will get it up over the weekend on the Man Cave Meals page, and I will include the recipe file or the recipe in that post. So just watch for the Man Cave Meals Facebook page. I'll give you the recipe. Or if you want to go online and Google, you'll find this recipe. It's 1 bag of Chester's puff corn butter flavor is the original recipe. 1 cup of brown sugar, 1/4 cup of light Karo syrup, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 1 teaspoon of baking soda or baking powder, not baking soda, and that's it. Or a stick of butter. So you melt the butter, add the sugar and Karo syrup. As soon as it starts to boil, you pull it off. You whisk in your vanilla and your baking powder until it's nice and smooth, and then you drizzle it over your puff corn. You stir it till it's coated. Put it in a pan, 250 for an hour. That's everything that's in that recipe. I don't think I forgot anything, but look it up if you. Oh, the recipe does say 1 cup of chopped nuts if you want to add nuts to that. Tanya and I were also talking about. I don't like I said I don't eat nuts, but I've made candied pecans before, and in the I was asking Tanya before we did the live stream if she thought these would be good with a little bit of cayenne pepper in there, and she said she thought they would be just a little bit, not a lot, because I've made the candied pecans and added a little cayenne pepper to those, and those were a big hit when I did those. So it might be that's where Tanya comes up with the idea. Let's do this Chicago mix idea with the cheddar and both. So what do you think, Ron? You think cayenne would be good in a Bucky's beaver? Yeah.
Absolutely. I might have to go tomorrow and give them a try. Or maybe I'll just make some.
If you're only 20 minutes from a Bucky's, grab some next time you're by there. Yeah, it's definitely worth trying. So that's all the cooking I did this week. I made video of the pizza, so that video will publish next week, and I think this coming week I'm going to do some Italian style meatballs and do something with those. I'm gonna make some of that ground pork that pork I ground up last week. I'm going to take a couple pounds of that and make some meatballs. I haven't made meatballs in a while, and I like meatballs, and so does Tanya. So there's a lot of things you can do with them. I'm going to use that ground pork butt to make meatballs with. Those would be great for meatballs. So.
Oh yeah. I say, look here. Here's another thought. You're talking about the nuts for the beaver nuggets, chopping them up finely. Another great excuse for the food processor.
Yeah. Yep. That chopper, I don't know, that chopper would probably do a pretty good job with that also. But the problem with the chopper is everything, you don't have any control over how fine the stuff gets. You'll have some stuff really
I was going to say, no.
Yeah.
We're trying to justify the food processor here.
I don't need to justify it. All I got to do is decide when I want to get it. But I'm gonna try to get part of it as a birthday gift. I've got a birthday coming up before too terribly long, and I think that's gonna be my target for my birthday this year. Is getting part of that paid for. So can't put candied pecans in it. Yeah, I don't know. What
Well, you
Tanya?
could
What
put
would your
regular pecans in it, and they would get kind of candied.
yeah? They're gonna get
Stomach
that's
syrup.
this yeah, that's candied. That I don't know about peanut brittle, but I tell you, when I was looking at this, what we made, the stuff before, the stuff that we made to pour on that puff corn looked to me a lot like what peanut brittle might look like without any peanuts in it. Tanya, if I poured that stuff out on a pan, would it would harden up and be a candy more or less. I don't know. I might have to cook it hotter. I might have to get that hotter to make that come out like peanut brittle.
Did you say you put some baking soda in it?
Yes.
Okay.
So I don't understand that. That's a culinary thing that I need to look up and figure out what role the baking soda plays in that. I know it's making something to do with the color, and it's probably allowing it to become brittle somehow or
Baking soda
another.
is magical. That is
Yeah, I
true.
don't. It's making it opaque. It's make that otherwise without that baking soda, if once it hardened, it might have come up clear. Uh, I don't know. It's
And it's fluffy.
yeah, but that
I was
stuff's
gonna say
real.
what that now you got me thinking because I don't do peanut brittle really either. But what in the peanut brittle gives it that brown? I guess the brown sugar and the caramelization that
Yeah,
cooking maybe at a higher heat.
right. I don't know how peanut brittle's made because I've never made it. I would
Me
like the
neither.
Yeah,
peanut
it's been
brittle.
a
I would
while.
like that if you leave the peanuts out. Just make the
Well, that's what
brittle.
that honeycomb can. You know that
Yeah,
honeycomb candy, John? That's what
yeah.
that is the
I
peanut
like that.
brittle without the peanuts.
And see, that stuff's opaque also. It's kind of got that look. I really, I need to figure that honeycomb candy would be very similar to this. And Tanya,
Mhm.
once again, this would have been a game changer if I had had Lyle's golden syrup to use in this instead of that Cairo syrup.
Yeah, I think it would have really
Yeah, put a cane
elevated
sugar.
it up a notch. Not that I'm
Yeah.
liking Cairo. I like Cairo, but man, there's something
Well,
about
I
that
had to go
Lyle's
buy
golden
that
syrup.
because I had to go buy the Cairo because that Cairo was the only ingredient I didn't have besides the Chesters to make
Mhm.
this. I don't use Cairo syrup for anything. I never have that in my cabinet. Uh,
I do. So I'm gonna go hick here. One of the desserts we used to have a lot when I was a kid was you get you a pat of butter and you get a little bit of Cairo and you'd mash it up and you dip it on your biscuit. It was delicious.
well, I just Ryan, do you have Cairo syrup? Have you used that?
I have, and I mean it's. I remember growing up, my grandparents would have it and put it on pancakes in the morning, and now it's kind of just like it's so. I'm not a big sweets person. Every now and then, but not too often.
Is Cairo a corn syrup? Is that what that is?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
It
so
sure is.
I was just saying there is a light and a dark version of
I
it.
saw both,
Mhm.
but this one I knew this one called for the light, and
I think most recipes do. I'm not sure what you use the dark for,
Well,
yeah,
the darker
honestly.
one has a more molasses flavor to it
yep,
than the lighter one does.
Okay,
So I like to use it in gingerbread personally.
right.
I can see that.
I won't waste that bottle. I'll use it as a sweetener or a back sweetener. Sometimes like when I make a spaghetti sauce or a chili or something, I put a little bit of something sweet in it to kick back the tomato acidity, and I can use this for that just so I don't toss it out. I don't.
I made
But
some.
now
I
I'm
made
going to
some
be making
homemade.
these.
I made some homemade marinara for the chicken parmesan the other
Uh,
day, and and that's something I've been working on and trying to fine tune. I've only done it 2 or 3 times now. Is homemade pasta sauce. With the
right.
San Marzano tomatoes. Everything truly from scratch. And it amazes me how much sugar actually goes in a spaghetti or a marinara sauce to balance out the acidity of it.
Yeah, I don't put that much in mine. I guess if I
I
was
didn't.
making a sauce that had, those the San Marzano tomatoes, for instance, in 220 a 228-ounce can batch of that, or two of those cans that size, I would probably have no more than a tablespoon of sugar in that. That's about where I would land.
Yeah, I think I put about a tablespoon and a half ish,
Yeah,
maybe. I was gonna say, but we actually had leftovers tonight. I made it 2 days ago, and I mean, it is night and day. It was good the first day,
yeah.
but it is lights out good
It's
today
always
after it's been
better.
sitting.
Exactly. Absolutely. There's
Hmm.
no doubt about that. But I'll use weird things for that sweetener in these sauces. I'll use chocolate. If I've got chocolate laying around, I'll put chocolate in it, or I'll put honey or molasses or just whatever. I'll
Now that we're on topic of the Cairo, I'm curious if it might be good sparingly to put as a glaze, perhaps for like a pork tenderloin or so, some kind of something along those lines.
I would want to flavor it with something. I would want to.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I was,
You could. It's pretty thick. The stuff's pretty thick.
yeah.
If I was gonna based it on pork as a glaze, I'd probably thin it out with something.
Oh, absolutely. I was gonna say use it very sparingly, but maybe like a blackberry or a raspberry puree,
Because yeah,
something
this stuff has the consistency. It's almost the
of glue.
consistency of honey.
Yep. I
Yeah,
honestly, I feel like I don't know, it's been a while, but I was gonna say I feel like it's almost thicker than some honeys.
yeah. It as a glaze, I would thin
But
it
like I
out.
said, it's been quite. Yep, I was gonna say it's been quite a while, but I feel like it would tack up and give a very
Oh yeah,
nice sheen to whatever you put it on.
you could glaze. You could shine some ribs with it. Yeah,
Yeah, I was
you
gonna say
could mix.
habanero would probably go good with it. Some kind of, I don't know, like a fruity type glaze. Add some habanero in there.
Put
Might
a
be
get a
good.
get a fruit juice of some sort and thin it out with a little bit of fruit juice. Like you could use
That's a great
apple, or
idea.
you could use peach, or you could use pineapple even, and thin it out with a little juice, and it'd really be good for a glaze. I like
I
using
was gonna say,
marmalade or orange marmalade or
yep.
fruit preserves as a glaze, and I like to thin it out. And I typically thin it with a little bit of water and vinegar to balance out the sweetness at the same time. Um, but fruit, the fruit preserves do real well for stuff like that. And I've done like that pineapple passion fruit stuff that we buy, that Bon Mammon or Bon Mammon, however you pronounce that.
Bon
Uh,
and Mim. Yeah, I was gonna say that smoked cream cheese you did with the
yeah,
habanero and the
yes,
pineapple passion fruit.
yeah.
Yep,
I put some of my dried habanero in that, and it was delicious. I put it on the stove and brought it up to a simmer with. I thinned it out, a little bit. I put a little bourbon in there as well. I think I don't remember what. I don't think I put
nothing wrong with
vinegar in
that.
that one. I don't think I put vinegar in that one. I may have put a little bit. I'll have to go back and look. But that was amazing, and I'm getting ready to get my next year's my this year's peppers going. My seeds should be here any day. I'm looking forward to getting those started. We're gonna have cayennes, habaneros, and jalapenos again this year.
That's something I'd like to maybe try getting into this year. Is I don't know if you guys use it, but the pepper sauce that you put on like collards and whatnot, I'd like to try to make some homemade,
Uh,
which seems like it should be super easy.
is that like you talking about like chow chow?
No, these are
The red, like the
it's
Tabasco style sauce.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. I was gonna say they're the green little Tabasco peppers, and it's basically just in vinegar, maybe a little garlic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I've somewhere on the Man Cave Meals YouTube channel way back when I made some uh, hot sauce, but
okay.
I've not pursued it as much since then, but I've looked into it, and I think fermenting the peppers first. I made some. Tanya, remember when I bought all those peppers at the
Hmm.
farmers market, the Buford Highway Farmers Market? I used those to make
That's a good spot.
some fermented pepper hot sauce, and it was good, but it was hotter than I wanted it to be. What were those pepper? What was that type of pepper I bought down there that I can't get here? Um,
Hatch,
no,
Aleppo.
no,
Uh,
I can't
Lord,
remember
I
which
don't know.
peppers they were, but I knew they had them down there, and I went and bought several pounds of them, and I fermented them, and then made the hot sauce. The hot sauce was made completely in the blender, and it was
Was it
good. It
with
was.
the teal or
I'd have to go back and look. I don't remember
okay?
what. It was not any of those. They weren't supposed to. They were Fresno chilies. That's what they were.
There we go.
They were Fresnos, and they weren't supposed to be that hot. But this batch of them was pretty hot. I need to cut it with some red bell pepper next time. There he is. Night, Eric. Thanks for joining us. And yeah, Jeff. I hope Jeff gets to feeling better. He's like I said, he's
Hmm.
under the weather. I don't know. Next
Get
week,
well soon, Jeff.
uh, I'm not sure when Jeff's back, but next, I think we had talked about next week we were going to do something like some game day, something or another. Jeff and I would go head to head with something game day related. So I'll be sorting that out this week, and hopefully we'll still be able to do that and bring you guys something next week that might be fun to do Super Bowl Sunday. Uh, I haven't really been thinking about it, but I've done so many game day things in the past. I'm struggling to find something new and intriguing. I'll have to look around. Uh,
I got something for you, and I know you got it in the freezer because we've talked about it.
what's that?
The pig wings. That's I was gonna say
Yeah,
I'm planning on doing those for Super Bowl.
I've got some of
Hopefully they'll
those.
be. I'll say hopefully they'll be a hit. I was gonna say I've had them at a couple local restaurants, and they,
Yeah,
unfortunately, I haven't been able to source any like you. I know Porter Road has them, but I mean they're crazy expensive. I think it's
that's where
like
mine
twenty
came from.
dollars.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's like $20 for like two or three plus like 20 something. It'd be like $40 for a couple. So anyhow, there's all the local places here. They come pre-smoked, and the local restaurants deep fry them. So I'm gonna play around and throw them on the KJ to reheat them and see how they come out.
right. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'll come up with something. I need to do a wings video on the Lone Star, but I'm not going to
Lone
do that.
Star.
I'm not going to do the wings video this week. I don't want to do wings for the Super Bowl. Everybody, I don't know. Maybe I should because everybody wings is going to be. You're going to see. They're going to cook a ton of wings the next weekend. That'll be a big deal. Uh, I just don't know.
Chicken wing shortage coming to your local grocery store.
Yeah, don't wait. Don't wait till the second half of the week to buy your wings, or you won't find any.
No, I was gonna say, another crazy thing. I know it's not big where y'all are at, but and I mean, I could take it or leave it. But crawfish are just like insane around here, and usually
Yeah,
dirt cheap. $3-4 a pound. There's a crawfish shortage now, and they're upwards of $40 a pound now for crawfish. It's crazy.
really. That gum.
Yeah,
I can't buy crawfish here. I don't think. Well, I don't know. I think I do. They have them in a case at Ingles, Tanya.
We've seen them several places that they've
I
had it.
can't buy live ones here.
yeah. I was gonna say that's the thing. There's live ones all around, and these places, these large seafood markets that were getting, 5 to 10 trucks a week might get a truck every other week now. It's crazy,
Yeah,
like the shortage that's going on. Fortunately, I mean, like I said, I can take it. I like them, but I can take it or leave them. My favorite thing I found to do is I can buy local crawfish tails already peeled and in the freezer
yeah,
section and make crawfish cakes. Those are good.
right. I'll figure out something. I'll spend some time over the weekend in my lull hours overnight at the job finding something interesting to do for the Super Bowl. I'll have to think about it. I might go back through some of my old content and see if there's something back there that I could do over again that would be worth revisiting and improving upon.
I would say spruce it up a little bit.
I talked about doing that rib sandwich last week, but I don't know if I want to do that or not. That when I do something like that, there's a lot of waste involved because that's something that's got to be eaten when you make it, and it's not something that reheats that well. And I don't know. I hate to cook a rack of ribs and end up not being able to eat it all before it goes bad. We'll figure out something. I'll come up with something fun. I don't know what it'll be. I got time to think about it. I don't care who wins the Super Bowl either. I've lost interest in the NFL. I could care less. And I'm starting to lose interest in college football because it's like a JV NFL now, where all these players they're getting paid now. They're making money, and that's going to change the face of recruiting like you've never seen it before. We'll see. Formula One starts back up in March, so I'll be happy when my racing season gets rolling again.
I was going to say, mine started last weekend. I'm not a big IMSA guy, but watched the Rolex 2024 at Daytona, and then
Yeah,
NASCAR comes back this week. And it's,
yeah,
I'm kind of like you with the football deal. It's, NASCAR is just slowly, it's just the way the new cars are. It's just, there's no passing. It's just
yeah,
kind of, it almost is the cliche now of they're going around making left-hand turns.
yeah. I lost interest in NASCAR when the cars were. I liked stock car racing back when the cars were not that far off of being street legal. And
Yeah.
when the cars became uh, the only thing about where there's nothing about the car that's street legal anymore, I lost interest in that type of racing because oval track racing just bores me. That that
Hmm.
I used to enjoy watching way back at Riverside, because it's a road course, uh,
Yep.
and then Watkins Glen, some of that stuff. I didn't mind watching those, but
I was
oval
gonna say,
track
well,
racing.
since you're, I would say they've actually gotten. I mean, obviously, you probably don't know because you don't follow it, but they go to Circuit of the Americas now. They
Right,
actually raced on They had a street course in Chicago last year and
right.
raced in the rain. It was wild.
Yeah. Circuit to America, I knew about that one because F1's been racing there for quite a
F1.
while now.
Yeah. I
And
was like, I'm still upset I missed the Las Vegas Grand Prix.
well, you should have
Not
watched the
gonna happen
replay
this
of
year.
it. That I was very impressed with how well that came off. And not only was it a night race in Las Vegas, but it was a very competitive race. I really that race surprised me. I was very happy with that. So
Did
I'm
Lewis
looking.
Hamilton win?
No, he didn't. Hamilton hadn't won a
Wow.
race in 2 years.
Who
So
is the Who's the guy that we were just talking about today? See, I don't follow it enough to
Lewis
go into
Hamilton.
Ferrari.
We were talking about Hamilton today because
Really?
yeah, he's leaving Mercedes to go to Ferrari in
Mercedes.
2025.
I
Yeah,
I thought Lewis Hamilton was the one that literally wins like every week. Who is that I'm thinking
Max.
of?
That
Now it's
was
Max
2 years ago.
Verstappen.
Max.
Max.
Now it's
Yeah,
Okay,
Matt.
Max
Yeah.
Verstappen. Okay,
Max has
okay.
won
I was
three
gonna say,
championships in a row now. So
yeah, that
yeah,
that's who I was thinking. For some reason, I got him and Lewis Hamilton mixed up.
yeah. But Max is the man to beat right now for sure. But I'm looking forward to F1 kicking back off. The first race will be in March, but they'll have some winter testing in February, and so we'll get to see
Okay.
a little bit of activity in late February. The car, the showings of the new cars will be starting any day now. I'll have to go back and look. Those are in the first 2 weeks of February. The teams will all show you what their new cars look like, and that's kind of fun. They make a big deal out of all those events.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, All right. Well, we got to wrap things up. And guys, I appreciate you hanging out with us. And
Happy belated birthday, Tanya.
yeah,
Again, was that yesterday, right?
that's
Yep.
right. Tanya
It
had a
was
birthday
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Yeah,
Yep.
It's
she's
been since
21 now.
Yeah, something like that.
She's legal. So, all right, guys, we'll see you next week.
y'all